Welcome back to RuskiWeldFab, welcome back to the channel. If you're coming from this man's channel, you probably know exactly why you're here. If you are new here or you have no idea who this man is, I suggest you subscribe. This man is sick, Team Prone Racing, he's A3. See, I've learned. A3, I know, I used to call it S3 or whatever. Anyways, it's an A3, super fast, super awesome. Anyways, we are here making his splitter because this thing is humongous and weighs an absolute ton. So I think we can make it much lighter.
That's a good one!
In this video, I'm gonna try and make it as idiot-proof as possible. No offense. First thing first, carbon fiber. A lot of people probably wondering, what the hell is carbon fiber? Well, carbon fiber is this fancy material that is used a lot in supercars and for its unique properties of being very light, very strong, very abrasive resistant, and also expensive looking. So this is the cloth, but to make this cloth awesome, you need resin. Here I'm using Easy Composites epoxy resin. This stuff is completely odorless, so you can actually use it in your kitchen while your wife is eating her lunch, and she's not gonna kill you much. Don't try it. Don't try it at home. So resin has two parts. It's a resin and a hardener. This one is a fast hardener. You can get slow or fast or mix them to whatever ratio you want between them, but final ratio has to be 100:30. That's very important because pot life is very important. What is pot life? Pot life is how long your resin is going to stay in your pot in liquid form without setting. For fast hardener, it's about 15 to 20 minutes. For slow hardener, it's about an hour and a half. You can vary this by mixing fast to slow accordingly. I need to mention that it has to be done at specific temperature. Anything below 15 degrees is not gonna work because you need the resin to set at room temperature, ideally at 20 degrees, because if it's anything colder than that, it will be very long to set. It can delaminate, it can get bubbles, it can get really weird surface finish like streaking, which looks like a sort of milky water. Anyways, it has to be done at 20 degrees. Also, you need a really good pair of scissors. Those scissors, I've tried probably 20 different versions. Those ones I found on Amazon, they cut Kevlar and carbon absolutely perfectly. I will leave a link to my cheeky affiliate Amazon link in the description so you can go and buy one of those. Also, you need good, well, maybe not good, just any kind of decent scales just so you can weigh it, because obviously you weigh it by weight, not by milligrams or milliliters.
Not by volume.
Not by volume, by weight. Thank you, Nick. Also, depending on how you're making it, we are making a splitter and it's gonna go off a flat surface like this, which is a phenolic ply. Because we are laying all the fibers and resin on top of that, we want it to release and not stick to our mold. So for that, you need to use some kind of release agent. This is Easy Composite chemical release agent. I absolutely love this stuff. Basically what it does, it makes any surface that is non-porous really slippery, so your material, your resin doesn't stick to it. So you need to apply about 5 to 6 layers. Between the last layer and before you can lay your stuff is about 1 hour. Also, lint-free tissues, very important, because your beauty layer, your top layer, has to be absolutely spotless. If you use any sort of tissue or anything like that, it will leave residue, will leave hairs and dust, and this will show. Also, what you need for this particular project, for the splitter, you need foam, because if you are trying to make a really light part and really stiff part, obviously to make it really strong, what you can do is just apply 20 layers of carbon, but it will be very expensive and very heavy. So in order to get the thickness and the strength, we just use high density foam like this. This stuff can be easily cut with a knife, it can be sanded to any shape, it can be bent, it can be... It's actually really cool stuff, and Nick was surprised how dense it is. You think foam, but it's actually really stiff. So for this one in particular, we're using 10 mil. Again, Easy Composites, they stock everything. I also have, for another project, I have 3 mil, 2 mil. 2 mil is what I've used on my diffuser. For the split, I suggest 10 mil. You can also buy 25 mil, but I think that's a bit excessive, depending what you're making. So the first stage in making something like this is obviously you need initial shape. It's very easy to either use the existing splitter that you already probably made from plywood or any other material and just trace it around. You can increase the size to whatever new splitter might be. Or the very easy solution is literally use cardboard, stick it underneath your car, and then you can trace it around and just basically make whatever shape you think is necessary. And then using this high density foam, cutting it is very easy. Literally, you can either use a knife like that, a blade, or in this case we just use the jigsaw to get a really nice radius around. Now what we have to do is prepare edges. We need to sand them down so they're nice and smooth, and also for the leading edge for the front we need to make a small radius like that. For this we're gonna use a tool that I've lost. Again, can be bought from Easy Composites. It's permagrate, really nice sort of sandpaper on a stick. So let's prep this and then I'll show you what to do with carbon. As I mentioned before, we need to prep your mold or surface, whether it's glass or phenolic ply, with release agent of some sort. I'm using chemical release agent. You can use PVA or wax, and then you need to apply multiple layers.
Meanwhile,
in this instance, I have already applied multiple layers before, and that's why I really like using chemical release agent, because it stays on your surface for quite a while. So all I need to do is actually renew it with another maybe 2 layers.
We are getting toward the interesting bit now.
So the next step of the process is you need to pre-cut your pieces of fabric, because obviously for a large piece like that, what you can do, you can actually just roll it in one continuous strip and then cut. But there is going to be a lot of wastage, and then once you get by accident any resin in it, this whole roll is going to be ruined because it's going to set. So what I like to do is I like to pre-cut them. So we have this basic shape, and Nick has done an amazing job of sanding all the corners and pre-cutting it. So what we do now, we pre-cut pieces of carbon that we need. I didn't mention that for this particular composite piece we're using a classic method. We basically have 2 layers of carbon on each side, then foam in between, and that is the best sort of strength to weight ratio, because you can still stand on it, so it will still support around 100 kilos, but it will be fairly light. So for the beauty layer, for the top layer that everyone will see, we're using this 300 grams 2x2 6K, I think it is 6K, yeah, normal Twill carbon. Then for the middle layer, to give us proper strength, we're using this extra strong and extra cool Biaxial layer. Essentially what it is, it's carbon weaved at 45 degrees to each other, so it gives you a lot of strength on diagonal sort of bending axis, as opposed to this one which is 90 to 90. Anyways, this will give us extra strength. So we're using normal carbon for the top layers, and we're using this as a middle layer before the foam. So 2 in total on each side, 4 in total. So 2 on each side, 4 in total should give us the strength and the weight that we need. So let's cut those and then we weigh them, because I will explain to you in a minute why. So the easiest way to pre-cut your carbon is either you roll the carbon out and then you put your piece on top of whatever it might be. In this instance, it's quite easy, but we need to put something sort of heavy on top so it doesn't fly off.
Do you want me to come and hold it?
That's right. So we literally just roll it across the whatever surface we need, and then what I found the hard way, you need to leave sufficient amount of margin on each side, because carbon has a tendency, especially when it's wet, to slightly start shrinking and moving, and once it's wet it's almost impossible to put it right. So if you cut your material and you're trying to be like really cheap and like, oh, I want to do it as cheap as possible with as little wastage as possible, there's a very good chance that you're literally not gonna be enough, and it will stretch onto your mold. So it's always good to leave at least 5 centimeters overlap on each side. So this is what we have here, 5, but we'll leave a little bit longer. Another super cool top tip, because carbon, the way it's weaved at 90 degrees. To cut a really straight edge, what you need to do, you take one strand and you pull it out.
No way.
And it leaves you a nice straight line on the thing. So when you cut it, you know that your piece is perfectly straight next time.
How cool is that?
Because obviously, you see, if it goes like that, you cut
Yeah.
it, then it will be sort of all jagged. So now we just cut it at a straight line. Okay, so we are ready to mix the resin. The mold flat surface sheet is all prepped. So that's already, we already put a piece of foam on it, and we traced roughly a round shape, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to sort of apply resin around the whole thing. We kind of want it specifically to the part we're making. So obviously these areas, we know that they're safe, so it's going to be dry. So even when we lay our dry carbon on top, it's not going to be covered with residue from resin, so we can trim it, and this can be obviously used for something else if you want to make a little bracket or whatever. You definitely want to use gloves. Nitrile, again, can be bought from Easy Composites, but of course you can buy them from pretty much anywhere. Nitrile, don't use latex gloves, because they still allow chemicals to go through to your skin, and it's harmful, so highly recommend. Also, it gets absolutely everywhere. If it dries, then good luck taking it off. The way to measure correct amount of resin to your dry carbon is to weigh the carbon, and basically usually it's 1-to-1. So if you have 500 grams worth of carbon, you need about 500 grams worth of resin, plus about 10% for wastage, soaking, spillage, and all that stuff. I roughly know how much they weigh, but also because we have quite a large area, we're not going to mix everything in one pot, because carbon wise we'll probably have around 1.5 kilos altogether, 4 layers. We're not going to mix almost 2 liters of resin in one go. So because we're mixing it in 3-4 batches, I already know that if I mix in here 500 of resin itself, then 100 to 30 of hardeners, that should give me about 650 grams of resin, which is enough for this size for 1 layer. So let's just mix this. So we pre-mixed an amount of resin. It's a bit more than I said before, but it doesn't really matter. So now we need to apply a thin layer, a firm layer of resin onto the mold before we actually put a new first layer of reinforcement. For that we can use a number of tools. Nick, would you pass me those 2 tools? Paint roller, perfect for flat surfaces, or a spreader. One of those, again, link in the description, Amazon affiliate, cheap buy. You literally just spread it as uniformly as you can, and essentially bobs your ankle. You can literally just pour it on. Imagine it's kind of like icing a cake.
Cake.
In a mold, do you do this the same way?
Depends. On the roof, when I make a roof, yeah, I literally just pour it in and then go around. On more sort of compact molds, you obviously don't want to just have too much resin in one place. So you kind of just uniformly either use a brush or...
So this now, and the thickness you put this down, will determine how the top layer comes out.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you want a sufficient amount for the layer to soak through.
If it soaks up through.
But because we're using vacuum bag afterwards, it will actually draw a specific amount through. So it's not like we'll have a super extra thick layer of resin underneath.
So even though you've got a pop time on it, even if it takes us, say you've got a pop time of an hour, if it takes us 2 hours to lay this up,
it's fine, because the bottom layer, because that's why I like to mix extra layers at a time, because if the bottom one you already laid, we're not going to disturb it, so the top ones can sort of go almost.
That's it. As long as you don't disturb it, it'll be alright.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Why I use off-cut of tubes or drain pipes, because this way I roughly know where this edge needs to go. So we basically position it like this, and then as soon as it touches, we start rolling it. Yeah, just so. So we have literally just applied a fourth layer. Nick is actually trimming around it because the underneath 4 layers that went under the foam will need to be folded around it, and we don't want any more excess carbon in between that fold, so we want it to be as flat as possible. By the way, say hi to Rob. Yay!
Oh, yeah.
Rob came to support us. What can I say? It's pretty flat, so we didn't have any major hiccups. One thing I wanted to point out is that I ended up mixing 3 batches of resin. We still have a little bit left. So far overall, I think we've used, what was it, 700 plus 800 plus 700, 14 plus 8. So about 2.1 kilograms of resin. No, a little bit more than that. Considering the amount of Kevlar carbon we have, it should be under 4 kilograms. So let's trim it, let's fold it, and it should be done. So another step of this process, after all of your layers of reinforcement have been applied, you wetted everything and everything is basically soaked through. You have to apply Peel Ply. Effectively is this sort of fabric material that doesn't stick to your carbon. Well, it does stick, but as the name suggests, it's Peel Ply, as in you peel it afterwards, and it leaves this really nice, I don't know if you guys seen this sort of dry carbon usually on the underside or inside of certain parts. That's what it leaves. It leaves it this kind of matte, really sort of yeah, sort of dry thing. So we use that. That takes up quite a bit of excess resin. Also, the absorption mat. This serves exactly the same purpose. This basically absorbs all of the excess resin so the part becomes as light as possible, and also it helps to distribute all the air when we're sucking it out with vacuum. It will help distribute it all the way around from underneath the mold. So after that, all we need to do is apply a special vacuum bag, which is basically a cellophane. Put a little nozzle in, crank out the pressure, well, anti-pressure, and wait 15 hours. As you can see now, the whole splitter part, whatever you are making, is under vacuum. Ideally, what you need is around 20%, if you can see it, 20% vacuum. Because anything more, and it will pull too much pressure and too much resin through the whole thing, and it can distort the item. Everywhere that I read, obviously I didn't come up with this number, they say that 20% is absolutely perfect. Top tip, if you don't have a vacuum pump like that, which by the way you can obviously buy on Amazon, link in the description, you can use a vacuum cleaner, because usually they are around 20%. What you can do, again on Amazon, you know where the link is, you can buy those bags, vacuum cleaner bags. They are absolutely perfect because they're reusable and it's exactly 20%. But you cannot make them, obviously you can't buy them this big. So for something smaller, just use those bags, you will be absolutely fine. So now what we have to do is give it some time to set, and then we will be ready to have a look at what we kind of came up with.
Thank you very much. I'll tell you what, if doing this has taught me anything, it's that I probably don't have the patience for this.
Patience.
You need to be, it's probably akin to bodywork in you need to be seriously patient, you don't rush anything, you take your time, and you really need to know what you're doing. So I got the whole lay it out, wet resin in. I had no idea there was all this peel layer and then an absorption mat and then the vacuum and everything. So yeah, time consuming. You've got to take your time, you've got to do it right. Cannot wait to see the results. Thank you very much.
Let's wait another 15 hours. I kept saying 15 hours, and we'll show you the results.
72 hours later.
Yep.
Ta-da! Right, I'm back.
72 hours later. Actually, was it 72? 48, 72.
48 hours.
Couple of days later. This is what we are left with. It's all set, so now we just need to unwrap it like an early Christmas present and actually see what we managed to achieve here. So that's your finished Peel Ply when it's all soaked with resin. It has some substantial weight to it. It's not as easy as somebody might think. I think Nick was a little bit surprised how not easy it's to peel. It still comes off, but it requires a bit of effort. So once it's all peeled off, essentially what you're left with is a nice kind of dry carbon, dry sort of satin finish and glossy finish on this side. There's a few faults, I'm not gonna lie. We're not gonna pretend that we are absolutely, well, me, him, you know. There's a few sort of dry spots that need to be fixed, but it's all easily fixable with just applying another thin layer of resin. And then you can sand it. You can put coating resin on top, or UV lacquer, or anything you want basically to flatten it, to polish it, to make it shinier, to make it UV protected and stuff like that. So it's entirely up to you how you treat those parts. Personally, race car, most likely he'll break it pretty quick. Fingers crossed he doesn't. I would have just chucked it out like that, just sand the corners so it's nice and the hairs are not sort of stuck to it. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and we did try to make it as idiot proof as possible, step by step. Don't forget Team Prawn Racing, his channel, awesome, A3, damn it, again, I was so good. Go and check him out. He done a proper vlog on how we made this whole thing without all this sort of dry information that I've left on this video. So yeah guys, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.